What?
Okay, great.
Try again.
All right, well, let's begin with the introductions. My name's John Carton. I'm chair of the committee. What other committee members do we have on the call tonight?
Roseanne Ashby.
Okay.
David Sisson.
Hi, David.
Mariela Garcia Goldberg.
All right, thank you.
Francis Kroll, member of the committee.
Okay, thank you, Francis.
Erica Schwab.
Okay, Erica. Any other committee members?
Let's see. Where's my mic? My mic.
Pierre, do you see any others out there?
Yes, I believe.
James is here.
Okay, good, James. Great. Any other committee members? If not, let the staff introduce themselves.
All right. Good evening, Pierre Alleman, and I am the assistant. Well, no longer the assistant, but I'm the acting transit chief for Arlington Transit. I will just call on people in order as I see them on our list, starting with Ozzy.
Good afternoon, good evening. Ozzy Jamin, Arlington County FDNC project manager for Pentagon City project.
Okay.
Thank you. Clinton.
Yeah.
I think something happened with Clinton. Let's go to Diana.
Good evening, Diana Isaza with Arlington Transit.
Yeah, already.
Diane.
Good evening, Diane Trent, Bus Stop Manager, DES Transit Bureau.
Okay.
Thank you. Ed.
Good evening, Edward Sanders with Facilities Design and Construction.
Thank you. Francis.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Francis Teddy, Grounds Compliance Specialist with Arlington County.
Thank you. Josh D.
Good evening, Josh Strucker, Transit Technology Manager with Arlington County.
Thank you. Josh 2.
Josh Ruby here, transit intern, Arlington Transit.
Thank you. Kirk.
Good evening, everyone. Kirk Dand, Arlington County's WMATA Service Coordinator.
Thank you. Lauren.
Hey, everybody. Lauren Breyer, Arlington Transit's Management Analyst.
Great. Thank you. Paul.
Good evening, Paul Mounier, Service Planner for ART.
Great. Thank you. And Rocco.
Good evening, Rocco Visconti, Associate Planner for Arlington Transit.
Great. Thank you. And Ryan.
Good evening, Ryan Jones, Transit Asset Manager for ART.
All right, thank you. Are there any staff that I missed? Mr.
Yes,
Chair. Oh, go ahead, Edwin. Sorry.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Edwin Montano, DS Transit Project Manager for ADA improvements and maintenance bus stops.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who I missed?
Yes, and I apologize, Pierre. I disconnected earlier when you called on me. Clinton Edwards, Transit Services Manager.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chair, I believe that's all the staff that's currently on tonight's meeting.
Okay, great. Any other committee members join recently? Okay, if not, do we have any members of the public out there?
Rebecca Bridges.
Okay, great. Any others?
Good evening, this is Andre Stafford, Metrobus Planning, Virginia Bus Service.
Okay, Andre.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Sohail. I'm the, I guess I might be the representative from the Transportation Commission I'm the Transportation Commission's representative to the advisory committee.
Okay, great. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
This is your first meeting, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great to have you with us.
Thanks.
Okay, anybody else out there?
Kent Peaser, and I'm a member also of the accessibility subcommittee.
Okay. All right. So let's move to public comment. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to make a comment tonight? Okay, hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, it's Kent again.
Okay.
We just had the accessibility subcommittee meeting, and it was very clear from the number of concerns voiced that the new STAR contract operationally is seriously lacking in many respects. People are not being picked up on time. Shared rides are not making any logistical sense. Technologies that have been promised for a decade, over a decade probably, are still not available. And the ones that they're talking about bringing online are archaic.
Okay, Kent, why don't we save that for the report from the accessibility subcommittee, which is a little farther on in the meeting.
Okay, I was going to make it as part of the public comment, but we can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank you. Okay, any other comment?
This is Rebecca. I had raised my hand. I was going to speak to the STAR program from a public comment perspective, but if this isn't the time for that, I can hold.
Let's see. Now you're a nominee for the.
I am, but I'm also just coming as a member of the public. But yes.
Okay. What, Rebecca? I'll tell you what. In just a minute, we'll let you all introduce yourselves, and then we can cover that in the accessibility subcommittee report. How does that sound?
Completely fine. Of course. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's go on to approval of the minutes from the November 12th meeting. Is there a motion out there to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Seconded.
Okay, any comment on the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed say nay. Okay, the minutes carry unanimously. Okay, now we're going to move on to approval of the accessibility subcommittee nominees. We have two people. We have Rebecca Bridges, and we also have James Mountain. Pierre, you want to talk a little bit about the process here, and then we can hear from them briefly.
Yeah, so process-wise, we'll have the chair of the accessibility subcommittee introduce these two individuals. The staff has reviewed these individuals as well as passed this information on to the TAC. And the process is that those individuals, if they're present, they're welcome to speak at this time to note reasons why they would like to participate on the subcommittee. And after such it's completed, the TAC will take a vote to either approve or deny these members as far as being seated onto the accessibility subcommittee.
Okay, so Roseanne, would you like to introduce them?
Okay, certainly I can do that, and I am very supportive of these two applicants. If we approve these two applicants this evening, we will have a full complement of 7 for our subcommittee, which would very much help us in our work. So there are 2 applicants. Rebecca Bridges, whom you just heard from, has been a longtime Arlington resident. She's worked extensively in the IT field as a manager. Right now, she's homeschooling her young children, and she's a STAR user. And I don't know if James Mountain is here. He goes by Jim. I don't know if he is here tonight, but he is a very qualified person. He is a wheelchair user. He is new to STAR and has definitely some ideas about how to improve the program. But I don't know if he's present at the moment. Okay, so did you want to hear from Rebecca? Or
Sure. Rebecca, if you would
Rebecca,
like to say a little bit.
Sure. Thank you, Roseanne. Thank you, members of the committee, for your time and consideration of my application to serve. I am a person who is blind. My husband is also. We've been longtime residents and taxpayers in Arlington for more than 20 years. We love it and can't imagine being anywhere else. As Roseanne mentioned, I enjoyed a 20 or so year career that spanned a few different types of organizations. I've worked in nonprofits. I've worked as a contractor with lots of federal agencies. So I know how contracts work. I know how bureaucracy works, and all those things, how government works. My most recent role was in information technology. I worked for an accessibility consulting firm, so I know a lot about that also. I left my career about 1.5 years ago to focus full-time on my family. I do have 2 young children. We travel extensively in and outside of Arlington. We are a family that has an active lifestyle. I'm someone who doesn't like to just complain. I like to be a part of solutions, and I'm so excited about the opportunity to partner with Arlington County staff and Arlington County residents to ensure equal access to transportation and that Arlingtonians have options. I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Rebecca. Okay, and I guess Jim Mountain's not on the call. We determined that?
I don't think so. At least I haven't heard him.
Okay.
But again, he is a very qualified person, and I think brings a perspective of someone who is new to Arlington. He's a wheelchair user, very bright man. I think he works for the government. But anyway, serves on different boards. I think he would be a real asset to the subcommittee.
Okay, great. All right. Well, with that background, I would like to move the nominations of these 2 individuals, Rebecca Bridges and Jim Mountain. Is there a second?
I second, Mariela.
Okay. Any comment? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, carries unanimously. Welcome aboard, Rebecca. It's nice to have you on the committee.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for having we have a full complement now, and I'm really pleased about that. Thank you.
That's great. I think that's the biggest group we've ever had on that committee, so that's tremendous.
I think you're right.
Yeah. All right, Pierre, I'll let you go on the next item.
So thank you all who participated in the nomination process for TAC chair and vice chair. Just to let you know, we had 1 nomination for TAC chair, and that's John Carden. And we also had 1 nomination for TAC vice chair, and that's James Davenport. So process-wise, a poll will be sent out to the TAC this week. The poll will be open until mid-February. From that point, we'll calculate the votes, And at the next TAC meeting in March, the results will be shared and appointments will be made and start as part of the May TAC meeting. So thank you all for participating and looking forward to sending out the poll and getting your responses from there.
Thank you, Pierre. Appreciate that. Okay, our next item is the Arlington Transportation Future Update.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Mariela Garcia Colbert. I am your representative to the Arlington Transportation Future Advisory Group meeting. As you know, this is the group that is helping Arlington County with their plan for the future of our transportation and what it's going to be looking like. Every single month we work on different plans. The first meeting was just a public engagement summary, as it says here, and the existing conditions reports. A lot of people did participate in the public engagement. This this is more than what I have. Okay, so there we go. They had 42 days of public comment, 28 events, more than 8,000 interactions, and they got a lot of information. This is just the beginning of their engagement. You can go to the next slide to see what that says. If there's another slide, I don't even know. Okay, and this is what I guess the people that we heard mostly from. Of course, as always, I think the minorities were not heard as much of, but I understand from the county that they will continue to be looking at how to engage more people in the future. This is just the first step in the process. Okay. Okay, so no, go back. Oh, wait. I don't know where we are. Go to the next one. Okay, so this is what's going to happen next. We are looking at starting to work on the goals of the plan. The goals are to shape the vision of the transportation future, and they will form the basis for the city's long-range transportation plan. So every single month, or every time we have a meeting, I have an assignment that I have to bring back to my other meeting. And the assignment is to try to get 4 to 6 terms from you guys that will help me, will help the committee, the big Arlington Transportation Future, think about the vision. And these are the words that kind of came out of what we already have, but I'm supposed to ask you and bring some of these words back. For example, when we look at other vision statements from other counties around, things like safety or mobility or equity or project delivery come to the top. So I'm supposed to ask you guys, not only John, but all of the committee. I know John always asks, but all of the committee, if you guys have any thoughts about really terms or goals that you think are important for our transportation future. So not all at the same time, but if you have any terms that you think is important to bring forward to my Transportation Future Advisory Group, this is the time to tell me.
And Mariela, I would suggest that we have Pierre send this out to the group.
Okay.
And then they can think about it a little bit and maybe do a little research and then send you some responses after they've thought about it a little bit. And then we'll also reach the members of the committee that are not on the call tonight. But if anybody has any, top of mind things, feel free to let Mariela know.
Yeah, so the next meeting is on January 28th. So what I'm gonna do, Pierre, is send you this email that the advisory group sent to me with some examples from other counties, and then maybe you can share with the whole TAC here, and then they can send me some words. But if you have some words that you want to share with me now, that would be great. I think for me, that one of the most important is equity. Maybe accessible and equity, like they say here, because I think it's important that all our citizens are included in the transportation plan. But anything else, please let me know.
I would argue equality over equity personally. There's a difference.
And maybe that's the sort of thing you could spell out to her, kind of write out,
Sure.
How you would define that.
I can do that.
So it's clear.
Sure.
Anybody else has any thoughts? Because I don't want to be like like a little mean or anything, but sometimes when I send emails, nobody responds. And I do need to have some responses, unless you are completely gonna trust me that I'm gonna be able to do this on my own, representing the committee. That's the other thing.
We know it's important for you to get input from us, so
right.
I think you'll get some good responses personally.
Oh, okay.
This is James. I just have a quick question. I noticed the size of the lettering for some of these terms is different. Are the larger ones, are they a result of the most selection of people, or is it just kind of random how the size of it?
No, I think this is kind of like I don't know what this is called, where the more an answer is given, the bigger it gets in the PowerPoint presentation. So that means that more people said convenient and reliable than, for example, transit oriented, which is a little word. Okay. So the more people say walkable, the bigger that word will get, etc.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Mary Ellen. We'll put our thinking caps on and get some feedback for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And Pierre, I don't know, I'll share that with you, but if you want me to send the email, just let me know.
Okay, good. All right, next item here is the update on the Pentagon City second elevator project.
Okay, thank you. Again, my name is Edward Sanders, and I am a program manager, design and construction, and with me I have Ozzy Jabin, and she is a project officer for the Pentagon City elevator. Ozzy, could you pull up the slides, please?
Do you see
Thank
the?
you. Can we go to slide number 2? Yes, yes. Okay, the objective of this project is to add an elevator at the southwest corner of South Hayes Street and 12th Street South. The level will go down to the existing Metro mezzanine level, and that mezzanine level is also adjacent to the Pentagon City Mall entrance. The next slide, Ozzy. Now, here's some of the planning and design timeline that happened. And in 2010, WMATA compatibility study for that elevator at the request of Arlington County. And between 2012 and 2015, funds were secured for the design and construction, and also a 30% design was completed. Moving forward between 2015 and 2017, the county opted for a design bid bill approach. They have some, because of the limited area, there was this approach seemed to be the best method for delivery. They have a lot of, they have a circular driveway. You got Hayes Street on one side, so 3 sides, you got a circular driveway. You have the entrance to the mall. So it was a very limited space, very limited for contractor staging and working. So they thought a more prescriptive type of contract would be appropriate. Also, the county awards the design contract to STV, and they get a notice to proceed early 2017 to start the design. Next slide, Ozzy. So then in between 2018 and 2020, there's a 30% design plan revised to meet design facility manuals from WMATA. They had updated those, and they do them every so often. So we fell into one of those intervals, and so the 30% design had to be revised. Also, what happened between 2018 and 2020, the 90% design plan review identified some issues with the foundation. That took us back to some redesign. Also, it included not only some supportive excavation, but some redesign of the foundation and the type of the method that that was going to be used to shore up the foundation. Next slide, Ozzy. Okay. Then in 2020, the 100% design plan was completed. The ITB was advertised, and in the bid process moved forward with the board approval. 2021, Slosher Company, Inc., and they received a notice to proceed in the spring of 2021. Construction began in the fall of the same year, 2021. Next slide. Some of the challenges throughout the construction life of the project. Since 2021, when the project started, there had been some unforeseen site conditions that prompted redesign. I had touched on that just briefly. The foundation, where they had a pit for the elevator, the foundation, the bearing capacity wasn't sufficient because of the site conditions, so they had to do a redesign of the foundations. Also, they ran into some redesign requirements for the actual pistons that control the elevator. They found out there was some more issues with that, with the groundwater table. They had to redesign some of the piston housing to make sure that was properly insulated. Also during this time, the supply chain disruption resulted in also redesign, because some of the HVAC equipment during this was during the pandemic period. Some of the equipment was no longer. Let me back up one second. We had requirements, FTA requirements to Buy America. And because of that pandemic, and there was shortages in equipment, the company that initially was going to supply this was no longer in business. They found out that this particular equipment was no longer manufactured in the U.S. It was manufactured in China. So that prompted redesigns there through the issues related to the pandemic. Also, and not only redesign, but there were delays and not only the unforeseen physical site conditions and the supply chain. Both of these events created some delays and some challenges there. Some of the other challenges we had was the contractor submittal issues. Some of the things that were delayed. We also had to uphold quality and to ensure that the project was built according to design standards. So those were some issues that we had to maintain. Next slide, Ozzy. So moving through those challenges, we come to the next steps. Our next step now, the elevator it is installed. It is operational, moving up and down. It's not, we haven't got to substantial completion, so it's not open, but it is installed. It is operating. And so what's going on now, we're doing all the system integration testing, which will not only we're doing with the elevator, we're doing it with HVAC, the electrical systems that had to be additional electrical systems, the fire safety, all we're working in that phase now. So the construction is done. What we're doing now is just working with all the systems that we added and making sure that they interface properly with the existing systems. That's where we're at now. And the mezzanine hallway is open. We have they just have one of the areas kind of barricaded off, that where the elevator comes down. So it's not in use yet. But once these systems are in place, we get all the other documentation, like training for some of the systems, the testings, the manuals. We anticipate the project being fully completed in the summer of 2025. That concludes this update. Are there any questions?
Edward, we thank you for the update. So hopefully next summer, when we take our tour of projects, we'll be able to stop by and see a working elevator, right?
Yes, a working elevator with no construction in sight.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all shooting for.
Good. Okay, questions or comments for Edward? Okay, if not, thank you, Edward, for that update. And now let's talk about the WMATA budget and the DMV moves update. So, Kirk, I assume that's you. So I tell you what, let's, if we're not actually talking, let's turn our cameras off. But if we are talking, Kirk, if you can turn yours on so we can see you.
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Once I shared my screen, everything minimized and I couldn't turn off the mic. I apologize.
No problem.
So my name's Kirk Dant. I'm the Arlington County WMATA Service Coordinator. For those who are new, I work for Arlington, not WMATA. It's just part of my title. Today I'm going to be talking about, excuse me, the WMATA fiscal year 26 budget and the DMV moves progress. So, excuse me. The general manager has proposed his fiscal year 26 budget. It's a $5 billion budget with $2.6 billion going to operating and $2.4 going to capital. What they're going to be doing on Metrobus is implementing the year one Better Bus Network redesign. And then it will no longer be a redesign. It will just be the Better Bus Network. In doing so, we hope to see efficiencies, which will create more ridership, go where people want to go at times that people want to go, etc., which will then turn into revenue, which will be good for the budget. On Metro Rail, they are looking to add peak capacity by inserting trains at specific points in the system where they've been seeing overcrowding, and that will make people's ride a lot smoother and nicer, and then hopefully we will get more ridership there as well. They're also going to be changing the path of travel for the yellow line and making it so that, once again, people can get where they want to go. There's not going to be any fare changes, and there's not going to be any reduction in service to Metro Access. On this slide, it goes over the bus optimization. I think we've all seen the Better Bus Network redesign positives, and we're all chomping at the bit to get it instated so that we can see a more efficient system. This is a slide from the WMATA boards package that shows, can you guys see my mouse?
Yeah.
All right, so this area right here is where they're going to be changing the yellow line where my mouse is shown right here. Over here is where we're going to be seeing some additional super peak capacity, which is where they're inserting the trains during the peak periods to reduce the crowding. They're also going to be doing that on the red line. And then what's this? Split silver line service between downtown Largo and New Carrollton. So much like the yellow line up here, they're changing the path of travel to make it easier for people to get where they need to go. And also, rather than inserting extra trains, they're just every other train's going to go to the other place. Much like I grew up in Boston, and you needed to look at the head sign on the red line trains so that you ended up where you wanted to actually go to. The next steps in the budget are, we are in January now, is for there to be public hearings like they do every budget. Those will be coming up in February. The board will then have workshops to fine tune everything. Then if all goes as planned, in late March, they will adopt the budget as was proposed by the general manager or with the tweaks that they came up during their workshops. And that then affords the WMATA staff time to submit the federal applications that need to go in before they start the fiscal year. For those of you in the TAC, hopefully you received the pre-slides that I had sent out, and you'll be able to click on these links. But for those who did not receive it, if you go to WMATA.com and about, in the news section, there's a whole piece about the Metro budget. There's also on the WMATA.com initiatives and plans, it will talk about the Better Bus network. Also, this is an added slide that was not in your piece before this meeting, but it is the announcement, the public notification of the public hearings. And the first one will be at the Eisenhower HQ in Alexandria down by the Wegmans. That's going to be on Monday, February 3rd at 6 p.m. I will be attending that in person. Earlier that day, or no, the next day at noon, there will be a video conference, a virtual version, and phone in to talk to the WMATA board members about this. And that will be technically held at WMATA HQ at L'Enfant, but it will not be public in the room. It will be public via video conference and phone. Later that night at L'Enfant, the DC hearing will occur at 6 p.m. at L'Enfant, and then the following day on the 5th at 6 p.m., there will be a hearing at the New Carrollton HQ. Do you want me to break to talk about budget now, or do you want to move right into DMV moves?
Tell you what, let's see if there are any questions here or comments on the budget. I just have one question, and that is, so what's the anticipated date for the Better Bus implementation?
Unless I'm saying it incorrectly, and feel free to jump in, Andre, it would be the last week of June in order to have the full service week for the which, you know, the fiscal year officially starts on the 1st of July, but in order to make it a service week, it generally starts the last week of June on the Sunday. Am I correct with this, Andre?
That's correct. It'll be Sunday, June 29th, 2025.
Thank you, Andre. See, I'm glad Andre always attends these so I can throw those questions at him.
Right, you have the expert. Okay, other questions for Kirk here or Andre?
Could you just summarize again?
So on the Better Bus Network redesign, as you can see on the screen here, there's 11 more routes that'll be added into the frequent service network. They are going to the places that people want to go through the public hearings. There was an immense amount of public comment on the Better Bus Network redesign, people saying where they wanted to go and when they wanted to go. There'll be more midday and evening and weekend service for Metro Bus. On the Metro Rail, they are addressing the overcrowding by introducing what they're calling peak performance, which is it's strategic trains on strategic lines where they've been seeing the overcrowding, and they can have them basically move in and move back to artificially move more people by rather than having a whole bunch of trains all day and have them be less full. They can, when it's peak time, they can introduce those strategic trains, much like we do in bus, where we put out trippers, we call them. When a bus gets full, we put out another bus. But this is a planned thing. Rather than waiting for the crowding, they're introducing this so that there will be less crowding. They're extending half of the yellow line all the way out to Greenbelt, and they are taking every other train to one to downtown Largo and one to New Carrollton. So every other train will be doing that to increase the service at those stations.
Okay, good.
And then, as I had said, they're going to open an hour early on the weekends and close an hour late on like Fridays and Saturdays and stuff like that, so that people aren't getting stranded out there once they've had their fun spending their money in the district.
That's great.
Other than that, no fare changes and no change at all to Metro access.
Okay, David Sisson has his hand up.
Yeah, I remember seeing an article maybe 6 months ago that Metro was looking at increasing the peak speed, especially on like the red line, which would allow them to provide more service with the same number of cars. Has there been any update on that?
So that's the automatic train control. It's what the system was originally built for. And then I think it was like 2018 or so when there was some catastrophe, they stopped doing it. It was not, automatic train control was not the reason for the collision or smoking situations, but they just never brought it back into service. This is what the system was built to do. It takes the human factor out of it, although a human will still be on board to override if necessary in cases of foul weather or other things, things that the system wasn't necessarily anticipating. It is being tested on the red line right now, and once it's fully complete, and they will be rolling that out to the other lines in this next fiscal year. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Hey, Kirk and Andre, well, just one quick question. So for the Better Bus Network, is it about the same number of bus miles total, or is it a certain amount increase, or how do we look there as far? I know it's
as far as Arlington is concerned, we're technically receiving more service, if I remember correctly, but I'll yield to Andre.
Yeah, overall, the network is 3%. Is there a 3% increase overall system-wide? As far as at a jurisdictional level, I couldn't answer that question, but Kirk is correct. There is a moderate increase in the number of bus miles within the county of Arlington.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, Kirk, you want to go on with the rest of your presentation?
Certainly.
Okay.
So the next item up is DMV moves, something that's near and dear to our hearts. So there's been quite a few meetings of the task force, and they've been able to drill down to, they've taken their wants and needs and they've then applied it to different scenarios, and it's based on a pyramid approach, right? So you can't have scenario 4, let's call that the roof of a house, right? Without scenario 1, which would be the basement. You need to have a foundation before you can build a roof. So at this point in time, they are trying to determine what scenario they want as their vision. Where do they want to get to? You know, obviously it would be easy to just say we want scenario 4, right? But that comes at a cost. So in order to do scenario 4, you would need to have all the monies that make scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. With the way things are going, that's not quite, it's a great ambition, but it's not something that's realistic. Right now, it appears that they would be going for scenario 2, possibly scenario 3, but if we think back to what DMV moves is, it was really, in my opinion, put together to find the dedicated funding to make sure that WMATA didn't go through the almost every fiscal year budget of having to do cuts in order to deal with it, because the PREA funding that WMATA receives, while we all rely on it and it's a great thing to have that dedicated funding, it doesn't actually pay for what it was intended to do because there was no thought of inflation. So the cost of steel now is far more than the cost of steel was previously, and so on and so forth with everything regarding transit. So what we're trying to do is find the dedicated funding. In doing so, they want to make sure that that funding will cover what they're immediately looking to do. And what that appears to be at this moment is to have enhanced service and a baseline state of good repair while keeping the existing service and the baseline state of good repair. So when we put all of that together for scenario 1 and 2, they're looking at about 600 million just to fund WMATA that we would need extra each year. If we then start putting all the local bus services and commuter rail, et cetera, in, because we generally cost less than WMATA does, they have a much larger service area. That's another 250. So we're looking at about 850 that would be needed to do scenario 1 and 2. So what's going on right now is the task force is meeting in January. The advisory groups will be meeting in January, February timeframe, and so on and so forth. The task group meets every so few months. They then tell the advisory groups what they think that they should be talking about, and then the advisory groups have tasked the working groups to study individual things such as fare policy, service guidelines and performance measures, wayfinding and amenities, bus priority strategies, shared resources and assets, and a training working group. So from each of those, we have been tasked. I'm on 3 of them. Josh Reevy's on 4 of them. Diane's on 1. Diana's on 1. It's a group approach to this where we are system matter experts, and we then do a bunch of homework, report back to the advisory groups, both the government partners and the community partners. John, I think you're with the community partners, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
No? Okay.
No.
I had a feeling that you were involved with that. But so the community partners are people like businesses and the union and people have a stake in transit, but are not necessarily transit, but they know what they want. The government partners are generally people like the directors of the transportation divisions or departments of the jurisdictions. And then the task force is made up of the elected officials with representatives from the WMATA group and from the Council of Governments. And then there's a DMVMoves.org website, and that gives you a big picture of what DMV Moves is. DMVMoves.org/events will tell you when stuff is happening, as well as link to previous events so that you can watch it on YouTube or get it the meeting materials that occurred there. And then there's a resources page. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions about DMV Moves? Hearing none, I will stop sharing, and I wish you all a great evening.
Okay, Kirk. Thanks for sharing that. We appreciate it. Okay, next item here is Arlington Transit and STAR performance metrics. Clinton, is that you?
Paul, Rocco, and Lauren will be providing this presentation.
Okay. Okay, great.
Good evening. Moment. Good evening. We're going to just briefly go over some performance metrics for the ART system and STAR system, ridership, and some iRide data and STAR ridership.
Paul, why don't you introduce yourself again? That may not know you.
My name is Paul Mounier. I am the service planner for the Arlington Transit bus service. And as I said, we're going to just be going over a few ridership statistics for ART STAR and give you some information on some iRide statistics also. First off, this is the last 3 years of ridership for the first 5 months of the fiscal year. Our fiscal year starts in July. And you can see there's been pretty steady growth over the past 3 years. And this year, the change, percent change in growth, you can see at the bottom, 11%, 1%, 9.3%, which is averaging out to 8.1% over last year's ridership. To put this in, oh, and to also to mention, in FY25, at the beginning of July, we did eliminate 3 routes, the 51, the 60, the 53, 61, and 62. And we established a new route, the 56, which there was a decrease in the service area coverage, but we did cover some of the key areas that those routes served. And in fact, the 56 is doing pretty well, maintaining about 89% of the ridership of the 3 previous routes. And this gives you a little better context to the previous slide. Going back to FY22, you can see that there has been substantial growth in the system, with a high of 27% between FY22 and FY21, 15 and 17.5%. Respectively for 23 and 24. As noted, we are having what seems like slightly lower growth so far this year. but still 8.9% or 8.1% is still a significant growth factor. And the last slide we want to talk about is last fiscal year, we had a fare-free project that we partnered with MBTC on to use some funding from the I-66 express lanes to provide free rides. The way these rides were provided is that during the peak period, when the lanes are operational from 5:30 to 9 in the morning and 3 to 7 in the evening, trips that were in the peak direction during that period were free rides on the system. And just these are weekday numbers for those months, and you can see that there was, significant percentage gain in October, but still pretty high percentage gains November through December, which averaged out to about 17.7% gain over that time, which is roughly in line with the overall gain that we had. It's the increases in ridership are primarily during the weekday periods, but you can see that during the periods of free fare that it was a little higher. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Lauren to talk about some of the iRide ridership and speak on while we were doing the fare free rush. As you're aware, students are free rides already. So the way we had to count the ridership, we had to make estimates for some of the student ridership, but Lauren can talk about that.
Thanks, Paul. Hello, everybody. I'm Lauren Breyer, the Transit Management Analyst, and I'm a lead for the student fare program called the iRide program. The iRide program allows free rides to students with the use of a specialized card. This program began in February 2022, but we are sharing data from the third quarter, or what is that, the second quarter, September, October, November, for fiscal year 24 and 25 with a percent change. For fiscal year 2024, September, October, November, we totaled a little over 33,000. And in fiscal year 25, so September 2024 through November 2024, we saw 43,000 total student trips. That's almost 10%, or that's a, wait, what is this? 10,000% gain of student trips. And the percent change, we've seen significant growth of 14%, 38%, and 42% respectively for each of those months. And some of this can be due to the estimate that we did make for student ridership, as Paul was explaining during the free fare rush. People during rush hour traffic didn't have to tap their cards half the time, so we had to estimate half of the student trips using a compound aggregate growth rate, which I think we might have been a little bit lower, actually, but it comes up to see that our ridership numbers, as we'll see in the next slide, over the last 3 years have been steadily increasing. In the beginning of last year, January 2024, we introduced, wait, can you go back one real quick, Paul? We introduced ridership, free student trips with iRide card on Metrobus with an agreement with the regional provider. And for the months of September, October, and November, Metrobus student ridership was a little bit rounding, 15,000, 19,000, and 19,000 again in November, for a total of 53,000 student trips over those 3 months, which is actually more than what we had on ART, meaning students are taking both ART bus and Metrobus to get around Arlington. This brings our total to 96,000 student trips across ART and Metro for September, October, and November this last year, which is almost 100,000 student trips, which is really cool to see. Now we can go to the next page. I also wanted to attribute some of this growth to our partnerships with Arlington Public Schools. Starting in 2022 to 2024, we partnered with APS to distribute iRide cards through the schools, giving another opportunity for students to get the cards. And with that collaboration, we've been able to hand out more cards, and I think is what is driving this increase in ridership. So now we have on the screen a yearly year-over-year view from fiscal year 23, 24, and 25, respectfully increasing. So for 23, we started at 5,000, and by June, we were at 11,000, roughly doubling the student trips on art. This is just art for right now. And fiscal year 24, July, we had 10,000, and by June, we were at 12,000. Again, steady increase. We had the fare free rush in there, so our estimates again might have skewed that number. And then from July to November this past year, we're averaging around 12,000 student trips, with a percent change, averaging for this first 2 quarters of the fiscal year 25, 26.3% growth. Okay, I think that's it.
I'll say one thing. Keisha's got a particular testimony about the iRide. Maybe this would be a good time for her to share it.
Sure.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Keisha.
that's great.
If she put it in the chat.
What was it?
It says, my son and nephew love iRide as it helps them get to their after school and weekend jobs and hang out with friends. Thank you, Art. This has been benefit to my family when everything else continues to go up in cost. Yeah, we initiated this with an intention of, providing trips to students in general. This was, obviously to get them to and from school, but also provide transit opportunities and the freedom of mobility to people under the age of 16, the legal driving age. It's been great. I think the feedback is really appreciated. And I think that's it for me. In February, the service performance dashboard, which is available on the ART website, will have student ridership data added to it.
Yeah, that's really great. I'll just add on to what Lauren and Keisha commented here, and that is, it's also great to hear that, the younger folks, before they can drive, they're getting they're enjoying transit, they're making good use of it, it's really useful to them. And then when they get to be driving age, some of them decide, well, I don't really need to drive the car or whatever because I've got transit. I'm used to it, that's what I like to do. And I think there's been some write-ups in the literature about fewer young people deciding to get their driver's licenses, and particularly if they're exposed to good transit, then that certainly helps, them make that kind of decision.
I can attest to that. Also, the youth mental health crisis and providing freedom of mobility to students it's been shown to have a positive impact on mental health as they have personal liberties to be able to move around freely without the assistance of their parents, which is very good training. So we've also been doing distribution events in schools, and then we've been able to hear these conversations firsthand from students, which has been, again, positive. And I hope that we can continue having this resource available for students. And I think now we're going on to STAR metrics. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Rocco Visconti again. I'm an associate planner for Arlington Transit. So we have some metrics for STAR that we were going to share today. I just wanted to point out with the metrics that we share with the committee that the way we receive and work through and process our data on the county side, the data that you receive will be for this data will go all the way up to November 2024. The following, the end of a following month, we publish data for the previous month. So, for example, this end of January, we will publish the data for December, just because of the way it takes us to process and reconcile the data on our end. So this data is all the way up to November 2024. So you can see that in the last 3 fiscal years, STAR has continued to grow in terms of ridership. It has steadily increased. The increase has decreased. It has gotten lesser year over year, which can be largely attributed to people returning back to the service after the COVID-19 pandemic. We were seeing very large increases year over year after that, and that is starting to slow down slightly. But in fiscal year 2024, we did 51,773 trips, or individual riders, which was 3,901 more than the previous fiscal year. And you can see on the bottom as well that from July to November of 2024, which is the beginning of fiscal year 2025, we have done 17,910 trips so far. Okay, and then next we have month to month as well. You can see here that most of the months we have seen a slight increase in STAR service, with the one exception being August, which we had a very slight decrease in service with. We were specifically looking here too to see the impacts of the fare change that had happened beginning in fiscal year 2025. We were also doing comparison with ART, and you can see it here with STAR. STAR has ridership fluctuations that are happen with different months and seasons and holidays and events that happen. And so we don't always expect STAR ridership to increase linearly, like sometimes the bus ridership does, because the demand is different, and the way the demand models are different. So we were not able to observe any substantial decrease in ridership as a result of the fare change. If anything, we have seen slightly increased ridership month over month compared to the previous fiscal year. Yeah, all the way up through November, we are seeing very slight increases, 1.2%, 6.7%, 2.6% for September, October, November, respectively. We find that in line with what we are expecting. And then also quickly with that, I'm going to share my screen. I also have the STAR metrics report up through November 2024. This contains a lot of information about STAR, and this is published on our website, on the Arlington Transit website, up through November, in line with our service effectiveness report. And this basically, I'm not going to go over every metric on here, but this line lays out the basics of our service. So for example, we completed 3,509 trips in November with 4,096 unlinked passengers, with an average weekday ridership of 185. We received 2,589 calls, of which 2,504 were answered. There's a lot of metrics on here to go over, and these will all be available on the Arlington Transit website, so you can view them in depth there, going all the way back through fiscal year 2023 when this report was created.
Great. Thanks, Rocco. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I'm so sorry, and I apologize because I can't see your screen because I'm blind. In terms of the on-time performance, I assume there's a metric for something like that in this for STAR?
Sure, yes.
And what is that for the most, through November, what would that be?
Yes, the on-time performance most recent month, November, was 94%.
And Ms. Bridges, Ms. Bridges, I will say that that's not reflective of the change that happened on December the 1st.
Understood. Well, that's my point. So my point is, let's just pay attention to that, because we'll keep that in the back of our minds, because that will change for sure over the next after November.
Oh, yes. From the data
Thank
we've
you.
seen so far for the month of December, we have dipped below 90% for when we're looking at on-time
I couldn't even
performance.
imagine it being that high.
Oh,
Okay,
yes, we're,
thank you.
yeah, I'm looking at the metrics so far for December. And so we definitely have some weeks less than that November
Thank
number
you.
of 94%.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So now we have the STAR contract update. Clinton?
Good evening, everyone. Just giving you a brief update for those of you all that were on the accessibility subcommittee meeting this earlier today at 5 o'clock. This will be a regurgitation of what you previously heard, but this is for the larger group. With the STAR contract, Arlington County entered into a contract with Diamond Transportation, as some of you all that are familiar with the STAR program previously knew them as, but they are now We Drive You. That contract went into effect on Sunday, December the 1st. For those of you that are familiar with the STAR program, previously we had two providers. We had Diamond Transportation and Red Top Taxi. However, due to operational concerns and looking at all of the proposals that we received, the county made the determination that the one provider could provide the same level of services that everyone had come to know and love prior to December the 1st. What we have happened in those 44 days since that has happened is that we've spent a lot of time talking with We Drive You here at the county and with the STAR call center. We have some operational challenges that we have encountered. We faced, as Ms. Bridges just mentioned, a reduction in on-time performance, some excessively late pickups, and trips that have been canceled. And so there are a lot of operational challenges that have transpired over these 44 days. And I went into greater detail. We had a lot of clients provide their experiences and family members during the accessibility subcommittee meeting. What we're doing to address those things is, first of all, we are apologizing profusely for the levels of service that we have provided. This is not the standard that we want for our specialized transportation. We hold it in high regard and want persons to be able for the transportation to be reliable, dependable, and safe, and be able to get people where they need to go on time. They need to get there. One thing I want to impress on everyone is that if you do have any comments on the service, please continue to send those through the STAR call center. What the STAR call centers do is that any comment that they receive, they log it into the system, and that's the way that We Drive You and the county can be responsive to those and make sure that they get the proper attention that they receive. In the interim, where we're doing to get more vehicles on the road to improve the system overall, currently we have 5 drivers in training. Those 5 drivers will get us up to 22 vehicles out on the road starting on this Sunday, January 19th, excuse me. That will help be able to handle the passenger loads. Currently, on weekdays, we're averaging about 150 scheduled trips per weekday since the schedule started. And so having those additional vehicles on the road will help with that. Also, with the non-dedicated piece, there's a piece, many of you all that are familiar with the STAR program knew that Red Top Taxi provided the non-dedicated service with their sedans and other vehicles. We are finishing up the fingerprinting, which was a provision of the contract for this non-dedicated provider who is called UServe, who implements and utilizes transportation network companies, your Ubers and your Lyft, to provide those services. What was, of course, paramount in any public transportation installation at any jurisdiction is safety. We did not want our STAR clients to be out with these TNC drivers without them going through the rigors of a county background check. Currently, those TNC drivers that will be on the STAR contract are going through the county fingerprinting and background check to make sure that they meet the rigorous standards that all county employees and contractors are required to meet that clearinghouse. So once those persons come online, those that background check started last week will be able to see more of those TNCs online, and they can be able to take some of the load off of We Drive You on their dedicated vehicles with their vans and their cutaway buses, and will be able to have those TNCs out in their vehicles that meet all of the Uber and Lyft standards. Operationally, we are optimistic that we're going to see some changes from what we first experienced the first 3 weeks. On-time performance did improve the week, of course, the week of Christmas, the week of New Year's, and then last week because of the snow event. However, we're expecting to go back full tilt this week and next week as we bring those additional We Drive You operators on and that You Serve piece for those non-dedicated trips to improve the on-time performance and getting folks to where they need to go. The accessibility subcommittee had a few requests for us to follow up on. There's a technology piece that we'll be able to bring online so that passengers can be able to track where their trips are, where their vehicles are, and how close they are to picking them up from their destinations. Also, they implored us to look at the scheduling practicing about having the shared trips and being able to look at how we can schedule those trips according to traffic conditions and things that are happening in the service area on a daily basis. And of course, looking at improving the on-time performance. So we're optimistic. We are having lots of conversations with We Drive You. They've let us know they're going to improve the operation, and we're moving forward with that in the near future. So thank everyone for their patience as we have rolled out this new contract with the single provider. And again, we apologize for the service not being up to snuff, but we are working feverishly to be able to make it a program that everyone can use, and can rely on for their transportation needs around the region. That's my update, Chair Carton.
Okay, thanks, Clinton. So I think this is a good segue into the report from the accessibility subcommittee. So Roseanne, I'll let you give the report.
Okay, can you hear me? I
Yes.
tried to take myself off mute. Okay, very good. Let me see. Okay, so I don't want to repeat what Clinton has said. Obviously, he gave you a very thorough report. I do want to share, though, that we dedicated a good bit of time at our 5 o'clock meeting hearing from members of the public. We knew people would be concerned. We've had a lot of concerns about, as Clinton indicated, people not being picked up at all, or people being picked up very, very late, or people having to stay on a vehicle for several hours and being late to work, to medical appointments. There was one lady who was concerned about her actually being fired from her job. And there are situations too, because they only have the vans that We Drive You has. Some people are not able to physically use the vans. They need a sedan type vehicle, and that will be solved when YouServe comes on board. The communication with the customers has been very poor. People are not given accurate information. They're not being told when the ride is coming. What they are being told is often, false, and it changes. So I don't want to belabor this, but I do want to say that there was a lot of disappointment so far. We recognize that the county staff are doing their very best to straighten this situation out. One of the things that was brought up is whether there needs to be some kind of interim solution. If this problem is going to go on too much longer, would there be some interim solution that could be implemented to get people to their appointments on time, to work on time? So I think I've got a few members of the subcommittee here. And by the way, I think Jim Mountain has joined the call, our other new applicant, our other new committee member. So I think he is on as well.
Okay.
I am Rose. Thank you.
Oh, okay. And Jim, you have been appointed to the subcommittee officially.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We voted earlier. Thank you all. So I don't know if any.
Roseanne,
I don't know if any,
I thank you for
go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
your summary there, following Clinton's. I don't know, maybe you could call on, some other people at the meeting if they have other things to add without going into too much detail. Yeah.
Right. I think Rebecca is still here. I don't know if Kent is here. Jim is here. Do you all have anything you want to share at this point?
The only thing I would share, this is Rebecca, is that, you'll notice that in the slides that they talked about, the increase in ridership, and yet, and like I've worked in procurement, I understand how it works. There's been an increase in ridership, and yet we went with one contractor who was hardly prepared for what was to come. And I think everyone is very disappointed in that. The lack of transparency with the customers, even when there was nothing that came out when this contract was issued, everybody didn't get where they needed to go. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, there's only one vendor now. And so I think there's just been a lot of disillusionment by the users of the program with what has happened and transpired. And I think there are frankly some concerns about what that contract looks like. I would like to see it because I think based on how things have been going, there are some concerns. Their livelihood is at stake here because of the ineptitude of the current contractor. And there are rumblings about potential changes to the program that might be in the contract that no one seems to know exist, or that there hasn't been any public comment on. So I think that's something that the subcommittee intends to dig into. I certainly do. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Jim, did you have anything to add? I know you personally had a bad experience.
I have, and I'll tell you about as recent as today. So I took Star to get to a work meeting in Reston today, and it was 45 minutes late picking me up. So I gave myself a little time, but that still made me a half an hour late to a work meeting. Did not have these kind of problems before we switched over to the single vendor, and the service with the new vendor, I guess it's called We Drive You now, is much worse in this big respect. Well, one, when they're late, you have no idea when they're going to show up. Whereas with Red Top before, you could check their website and see exactly where the car was. You'd know when it would get there. Now you just have no idea. You just have to keep waiting and look out the window to see when they're going to show up. So the service has drastically decreased in its value to the riders. That's it.
So, yeah. And so, John, that's, I think, the end of our report. We are hopeful that something can be done quickly to bring on more drivers and more vehicles. And the subcontractor, this USERV, we hope those drivers will come on board and better communication all around.
Yeah. So, Clinton, do you have any other comments on, is there light at the end of the tunnel here? And are we getting a little better, or, what do we see at this point?
The light at the end of the tunnel is the addition of the USERV with those operators coming on board in the next week and 2 weeks, and then having those additional drivers in training and being out in the service area available to provide service starting on Sunday. So right now, I think once we get that capacity more, we can get these trips more on time and eliminate all of these enormously long wait times. And the communication piece is going to come along as well once we get the spare piece online as far as the technology concerns.
And Clinton, do you mean the communication as in being able to check your phone and see how far away the ride is? Because that was a big benefit of Red Top that we completely lost with this new service.
Yes, there is a technology, a piece associated with We Drive You that will allow users to be able to track their ride on their mobile device.
That'll be great. Do you have any idea when that would be available?
We are laser focused on getting these operational issues concerned, and we're going to follow up with the subcommittee on Friday as far as working to get that piece online.
Great. That's great to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other comments, Roseanne?
No, thank you very much for, attending to this.
Okay. All right. Any other items from committee members or staff?
I do just want to note one item. As you may be aware, I'm currently serving as the acting chief with transit. And as a result, we have a volunteer to serve as an interim TAC liaison, and that's Diana Izaza. And
Okay.
she will be assisting you and the TAC team going forward with my help as well. So I just wanted to know that if you see emails coming from Diana, I'll still be around, I'll still be helping out, but she's going to be taking more of the lead with the TAC.
Okay, great. So you got enough balls up in the air, Pierre?
Excuse me?
You have enough balls up in the air right now?
Yes, it's baptism by a tsunami.
Yeah. So are you getting any reports from Lynn? Is she enjoying her retirement?
I have not checked in with Lynn just yet, but I'm pretty sure she's probably enjoying her retirement somewhere nice, chilling right now. So I can imagine.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful for her, but then everybody that's left behind has to pick up the pieces. But anyway, we're glad you all are there to help get it done.
Thank you.
Any other comments from committee members or staff? Okay, if not, our next meeting will be on Tuesday, March 11th. So, and just one reminder about, we want to provide some information on the Arlington Transportation future update. So I want to be sure and get those in as quickly as we can. All right. Well, thank you all for joining the meeting tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Good night.
Good evening.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.